So first things first, the window cleaners have just literally just arrived just as I started recording. So if you hear any thumping or anything like that, that's what's going on. But anyway, as always, when it comes to talking about Brexit, one of the biggest things that the Leave campaign really pushed for, and even before leading up to, of course, the referendum and a big push around Euroscepticism, was trying to capture sort of the fishing industry, primarily because, of course, these coastal towns and villages who very much rely on the employment that the fishing gives their towns is huge. And we've also got to lay into the fact that the Brexiteers, whenever they talked about this, didn't seem to understand the fact that the UK catches more fish than we eat, which gives you a quite significant problem, because if you're catching more fish than your, well, market base can consume, that's a lot of fish going to waste. So what do you do with all this extra fish? Well, that's where, of course, the EU comes in. And again, the common fisheries policy being in the single market, and of course the customs union, made it so easier so that you could be a UK fisherman and you could take your catch to, you could go out, do your fishing and take your catch to Spain, France, the Netherlands, Belgium, you name it. If it was a UK port, you could land your catch there and you could sell your catch there if you could get a higher price for it. And many fishermen in the UK did exactly that. And of course, as we've been reporting every time when it comes to fishing, you can see constant examples of, of fishermen going, well, 50% of my catch went to the EU, or as we just saw very recently, I posted about a company, I think it was down south, 60% of their catch went to the EU, and yet they campaigned to leave, and now they're like, well, I've lost 60% of my customer base. We tried warning you guys so much, so many times. Farage was not your friend. He was not the fisherman's friend as he claimed to be on so many more occasions. He used you, he abused you, and quite frankly, now that he's done with you, he hasn't even been anywhere near any of these coastal towns, hasn't even talked about any fishing issues since. And for that, you have my absolute deepest apologies. You were conned by, a con man. And unfortunately, he took advantage of many of your situations and your concerns and used it for his own, personal gain. And for that, you do have my deepest sympathies, because this will affect all these very sort of coastal towns, which again are also rural areas as well, very, very badly. So before we do go diving into today's article, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all the people who do support the channel that way. So this comes from The National, which is a Scottish newspaper. The title is Brexit Blamed by Scottish Shellfish Firm as it's Forced to Close Down. The Ethical Shellfish Company, founded by Guy Grieve and then his wife, Juliet Knight, over 12 years ago, was known for its hand-dived scallops, which were again delivered to top chefs throughout the UK, as well as private customers, and after being sourced on the west coast of Scotland. Last week, Grieve confirmed on social media that his company would be shutting down, writing, "The family farm is closing down. God knows we tried. Mother Atlantic kept us going for years. My son's characters were defined by the experience, as was mine. And my beloved former wife, Juliet, of many years, had led the lives that we led before we died. #Scotland." On Tuesday, the firm released a full-length statement setting out exactly why it had closed its doors. While the COVID pandemic again was chosen as the top reason for the firm closing down, Brexit was the second biggest factor. Grieve explained that the pandemic had impacted on the restaurant industry in a turn that had a major effect on the Ethical Shipping Company, resulting in the firm having to sell its boats. While this was survivable, the company was then reliant on sourcing produce from small dive boats along the west coast. But many of those were again reliant on European staff who left Scotland during the pandemic and didn't come back following Brexit. This left drastic crew shortages, and within the end, it caused our main supplier to quit fishing altogether and leave Scotland. Grieve explained it also made it more difficult to staff our small operation on Mull. And again, according to the firm's founder, the explosive growth of holiday accommodation on Mull then made it difficult to find even local workers, as homes in the area lay empty for many months. It felt like the final insult when in the end we were asked to leave our business premises so that it could be turned into, you guessed it, yet another holiday home, Grieve added. Other challenges faced by the shellfish firm include new health and safety regulations, making it harder to set up as a dive fisherman. And of course, climate change did lead to decline in shellfish stocks, shorter winds, and of course, making fishing harder. Grieve said that it was very depressing to have to see very little progress on the marine environmental protection since the company was founded back in 2010. However, he did confirm that the team would move to further environmental issues to try and keep up the good fight. James Withers, the CEO of Scotland's Food and Drink, was unsurprised by the factors leading to the ethical shellfish closure, saying, "The two usual nightmares are there, COVID and Brexit," he said. But the story's far more complex than just that. Scotland's food sector has transformed, but we've got a way to go. Mountaineer Cormac McInnish added that he hopes the Scottish Government did address these second homes issues causing problems for businesses in the Highlands and Islands, as well as trying to worth reading as an indicator of how difficult it is to run a business just in the Highlands and Islands, he tweeted. "I hope the Scottish Gov does take note, especially in the very depressing areas of the second homes, a curse which is destroying communities." Other businesses, including Upatall Bookshop, stood in solidarity with the Shellfish Company, saying, "It is humbling to read, Guy, and sadly one of those that will resonate with so many businesses, both now and those who have gone before. All the best for the future in your next chapter." Of course, the news did come a day after that it emerged that Brexit again is causing problems for the Falklands Islands fishing sector, and we covered that yesterday. So, again, and it goes on to all stuff that we've covered before since then, all about what's been going on in fishing. Again, losing out money, we've covered those statistics before, so I don't need to really cover them again. But again, at this point, again, we see this time and time again and again and again. I keep on saying again, but I have to, because it just keeps happening again and again and again. And don't get me wrong, this guy has my absolute sympathy. Because again, just like, many people, we don't know which way this guy voted. Again, he was a fisherman, so judging by the statistics, he was very, very likely to have voted to leave. But even then, all fishermen have my sympathies, even if they did vote to leave, because they were conned. And, as James O'Brien says, you've got to have sympathy for the conned, not the con men. And as I said before, you've got to separate the Brexiteers and the people who are the people who voted for it, because it's the Brexiteers who are to blame. So it's Farage, Boris Johnson, Michael Gove. Those are the Brexiteers. Those are the people who deserve the scorn for this absolute disaster that is essentially befalling this country. So as always, I know I always try to, give a bit of hope sometimes, but obviously when you read some things like this, sometimes it's really difficult to try and find that, that silver lining. But it's difficult sometimes, and I'll admit it's very difficult. But as I always say, I do hope that obviously the people mentioned in the article do, again, go and find other professions that, again, will provide for them and their families. So as always, thank you very much for watching, and please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And as always, there are the links down below to my Patreon page and a organization link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.